Lekutei Sichos Chelek Tezayin Vayakhel Gimel Lili Nishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Reb Menashe Kaltman. We changed the order this week. I'm doing the second Sikha this week instead of the first. The reason is because the first Sikha of this week is the Hemshech of the Siyum Masechta Chagigah, which Rabbi Aster taught last time in the week of Parshas Truma, and therefore he will continue with the Siyum Masechta Chagigah and Vayakhel Beis, and I will do Vayakhel Gimel. So here we are. This is a Rashi Sikha, a fascinating Geschmack Rashi Sikha, where we go back to the basics of a Rashi, a three-word Rashi that contains within it layers upon layers of Torah in all the aspects of Pshat, Remes, Drush, and Sod. And as we'll see in the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe himself points out how incredible this Rashi is. The topic that we're discussing today is the Kalei HaChatzer and the Masach Shar HaChatzer, the curtains of the courtyard and the entrance curtain of the courtyard. In the end of the Parsha, Vayakhel is speaking about the Chatzer, the courtyard of the Mishkan. The Mishkan stood in the middle of a courtyard. Beside the Mishkan, was a Kiyah and a Mizbeach, the Mizbeach HaChitza and the outer Mizbeach. And around the courtyard were Kalei HaChatzer, curtains that closed off the Chatzer. The Chatzer was 100 amis in the length, 50 amis in the width. And at the eastern side, the eastern wall of the Chatzer was made up of 15 amis on one side, the width, 15 amis on the other side, meaning coming from the corners, and then the 20 amis in the middle was the Shara Chatzer, was the entranceway into the Chatzer that had its own masach, had its own curtain. So, and that was the way a person could go in and out of the Chatzer. So, the Pasek says that the Masach Shara Chatzer, from Pasek Masach Shara Chatzer, the Esrim Amma, Oirich, it was 20 amis in the length, which means it was wide 20 amis. The Kaima Bereichav Chamesh amis, and the height of the Masach Shara Chatzer, the entrance curtain, was 5 amis. The reason why it says Bereichav is because if you laid it down, then the 20 is the length and 5 is the width. When you hang it up, then the width is 20 and the height is 5 because of the position that it's in. And then the pasuk ends, Leumas Kalei HaChatzer. This 5 by 20 was Leumas, the rest of the kloim, the rest of the curtains for the courtyard. So what does it mean, Leumas? Usually Leumas means opposite. Like Zeh Leumas, Zeh also Alikim. Kedusha is the opposite of Klipa, for example. Good opposite bad. But so here Rashi is maitik divert Leumas Kalei HaChatzer. Rashi quotes these three words. Unis mefarish kimidas Kalei HaChatzer. Leumas over here does not mean opposite. It means with the same measurements. Just like the Kalei HaChatzer were 5 amas tall, 5 amas high, so too the masach, the curtain of the entrance of the courtyard, is also 5 amas tall. Mr. Mefarshim explained. Rashi kommt aber warnen. Rashi is here to address. As the Taich from Wort Leumas is nicht wie es wird geteilt bechlal keneged. Rashi is clarifying that usually we say it means opposite. But over here it doesn't mean that. You can't say over here that it means that the entranceway was opposite the rest of the kloim, the curtains. No, by Zayt. The entrance was flush with, or a little bit off of the wall of the rest of the curtains. It wasn't opposite the curtains. So therefore you can't say kineged. Nor der Wort Leumas da meint kimidas. So therefore Rashi says that Leumas means in the same measurements, the same size. But we're going to have some questions over here. One question is right over here in this paragraph, another question in Siv Beis, and another question in Siv Gimel. Here's our first question. Very basic, typical Rashi Sicha question. Eb Rashi kommt nor abteichen dem Wort Leumas. For was ist meitig von Pasek euch die Wörter Kalei HaChatzer? If the sole goal of Rashi is to translate the word Leumas, that Leumas means kemidas, like the measurements of, then why doesn't Rashi just quote the word Leumas from the Pasek? Why include the words Kalei HaChatzer in the Dibur HaMaschel Ubefrat, as chazet zayiber beguf birushay? Kemidas Kalei HaChatzer, especially since Rashi mentions these words in the actual interpretation of Rashi, the actual comment of Rashi. So, at the Gedar Zogin Bekitzer, Leumas Kemidas. So, he should have just said it simply. Leumas means Kemidas. Even if he wants to mention Kali Achotzer, he says it in the Rashi, Kimidas Kali Achotzer. So why does he have to say the words Leumas Kali Achotzer in the Dibur HaMaschil? That's the first question, very basically, which obviously means that to us, that Rashi is coming to do more than just translate the word Leumas. Otherwise, he would have actually just put the word Leumas in the Dibur HaMaschil. See if base Oiches nit move on. We have another question. There are a couple of other places where the Torah uses the word Leumas. We can't say that it means kineged, and Rashi gives a different explanation. For example, Aleph Leumas Machbarta in Parashas Tetzaveh. Parashas Tetzaveh is talking about the ephod. The ephod had gold chains that were coming down from the shoulder, from the Avnei Shoyam that were on the shoulder, and the gold chains connected to two rings that were on the top of the ephod, on top of the Choshen Mishpat. I'm sorry. So the Pasek says Leumas Machbartoi, that the rings came Leumas, the connection point. Machbartoi from the word Chibur. Leumas Machbartoi. So Rashi explains that these chains came down right on top of the connection point to the ephod. So Leumas over there means next to, adjacent to, on top. Beis Leumas also in Parashas Vayikra. Similarly, in Parashas Vayikra, we're talking about the different in the carbon shlamim, the different parts of the inside of the animal that is brought on the mizbeach. It says the chelev that is Leumas ha'otza. So Rashi says Lemailo mikloyas yayotzes. Leumas ha'otza means just above the kidneys. So in both of those places, in Dartas Rashi Mefarish, Samuch Lamailo or Lamailo, Rashi teaches that the word Leumas means adjacent to, above. Rashi could have said the same thing over here. Said that Leumas means adjacent, above. Leumas Kali Achatzer meint, and could have translated. When the Pasek says it was tall, it was high, 5 amis. Leumas, the kloim, the curtains of the Chatzer, it could mean as the heich von Master Shadowhunter, that the height of the curtain of the entranceway of the Chatzer is given chamish amis hecher lemailo von the Kali Chatzer. You could have said that it means 5 amis above the 5 of the rest of the curtains, meaning to say that the masach was 10 amis tall. And why does Rashi say that Leumas means Kemidas? There's no comparative word like that in Chumash. There's no other word in Chumash that says Leumas and it means Kemidas. Nochmer, let's take this a step further. This meaning, if we were to say that the Masach Hashara Chatzar was 10 amis tall, 5 amis above the 5 amis of the rest of the Kloim, fits in better with the Pasek. Leighton Peter Samach Lamaila is verstandig for was das Mezuzah stehen die Werte Lumas Kali Achatzer. If you say that it was 10 amis, 5 amis above the 5 amis of the Kali Achatzer, we understand why the Pasek has to add the words Leumas Kali Achatzer. They kommen mit dir sein, wie viel ist given die Heich von der Masach Shadowhunter. They are the words, without them we wouldn't know this, they are the words that tell us the total height of the Masach of this curtain. Chamish amis hecher from the climb, that it was 5 amis above the rest of the curtains. Aber leiten Pirush Kemidas, as the Moshe had gehad dieselbe Moshe die Kali Achatzer, seien doch die Werte Leumas Kali Achatzer übrig. If Leumas means Kemidas, that we're telling us that these 5, that the Moshe was 5 amis, identical to the rest of the Kloim, these words are so totally superfluous. Already tells us that the Kloim were 5 amis tall. It even says about the Masach that it was 5 amis. So if the pshat of Leumas means that it was 5 amis, this is already information that we already have. What is the words Leumas? What are the words Leumas Kali Achatzer adding on that we don't already know? But if you were to say that it means that it was 10 amis tall, and Leumas means Lamaila, that it was 5 amis above the 5 amis, a total of 10, then these words are adding something. So that's our second question. Why does Rashi not taich Samuch Lamaila? That the Masach Shadowhunter was 10 amis, and the Leumas means 5 amis above the other 5 amis. Now we go into Seif Gimel. Seif Gimel is going to take this question that we should have said Samoch Lamaila, that it means above, and is going to take it to the next level. And in order to do that, he's going to introduce 2 Gemaras. And when we merge those two Gemaras together, it's going to intensify our question. And this is Sif Gimel. The Kashe wird noch starker like Tafridik in Pirush Rashi. This question will become stronger based on an earlier Rashi, a Rashi from Parashas Truma. Ubehakdim, but let us first preface the following two Gemaras. First is a Gemara in Zvachim. There's a machlekes between the Yehuda and Rabbi Yesi about the height of the Mizbeach HaChitzen, the outer Mizbeach, the Mizbeach that was called the Mizbeach HaNechoshes, the copper Mizbeach, the one that was outside of the Mishkan, that was used for the Karbonis. This machlekes, how tall was it? Rabbi Yehuda sagt, as das, was steht für Shalosh Ames Kimasa, Yidvarim Kiksavan. Rabbi Yehuda, it says, in the Pasek, in the Torah, it says that the Mizbeach HaChitzen was 3 ames tall. So you take it at face value. 3 ames means 3 ames, and the height of the Mizbeach, according to Rabbi Yehuda, was 3 ames. Und Rabbi Yesi, lernt ob durch Agzeirashava Ravua, from Mizbeach HaPnimi. Rabbi Yesi disagrees. He says there's a Agzeirashava that by both Mizbeachas, it says the word Ravua, it should be square. So we use that word as a Agzeirashava as a comparative limud, to learn one from the other. Just like the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the inside Mizbeach, the height was double the length. The length of the Mizbeach HaPnimi was 1 amma, and therefore the height of the Mizbeach HaPnimi was 2 amas. So too by the Mizbeach HaChitzin, the height of the Mizbeach is double its length. And since the Mizbeach HaChitzin, its length was 5 amas, therefore you double 5 is 10. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yesi, as the Heich from the Mizbeach is Gveneser amas. Rabbi Yesi learns that the height of the Mizbeach HaChitzin was 10 amas. And the fact that the Pasek says, V'shalosh amas keimasoi, this is referring to 3 amas above the Soiviv. The Soiviv was a band that went around the Mizbeach. So he says 3 amas above the Soiviv. But if you go from the bottom, from the ground up, it's 10 amas, because it has to be double of the Oidech of the Mizbeach, which was 5 amas. So the Gemara continues. Just said to Rabbi Yesi, a question. Is it possible that we're going to setting it up in a way that the Kohen Gadol is doing the Kohen is doing the Aveda on the Mizbeach? The Aveda is in his hand, and everyone could watch him. Varum? The Mizbeach is 10 amas hoch. The Mizbeach is 10 amas tall. Is es doch hecher von der Kalei HaChatzer? Was has been 5 amas. Then it's higher than the height of the Kalei HaChatzer, the curtains of the Chatzer, which were 5 amas. So it's possible that someone could be standing outside of the Chatzer of the base of the Mishkan, and he could be looking over the curtains up at the person on top of the Mizbeach, 10 amas in the air, doing the Avodah, which is a problem, according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yesi answered, as halt, as the hoich von the kloim is going to test of amas. According to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yesi, the height of the kloim was not 5 amas, but it was 15 amas. If you're going to ask, the Pasek says 5. So Rabbi Yesi learns misfas hamizbeach olamayla, that the mizbeach hachitzen, that the kloi hachatzer were 5 amas higher than the 10 amas of the mizbeach. When it says 5 in the Torah, it means 5 above the 10 of the Mizbeach. Total of 15, and therefore the person doing the Aveda will be blocked by the top 5 amas of the Kalei HaChatzer, and there's no problem of him being seen during the Aveda. That's one Gemara. Now we have another Gemara. The Gemara in Erevin sagt, as the Shir von a Pesach Ledas Rabbanon is Esrim Amod di Hoich Bereich of Eser. The Gemara in Erevin is talking about making an Erev. So you're putting together, let's say, a lechi and a kaira. You have 2 posts and a beam going across, or a string going across. You're making the shape of a Pesach. So you can't make it higher than what a Pesach would be. So the Gemara says, what's a Pesach? So the Rabbanan learn 20 amas tall, high, and 10 amas wide. Frag the Gemara, Leo Fumi Pesach Shara Chotzer, Malal and Chomis Berecha Veslim, Avkan Chomis Berecha Veslim. The Gemara says, why don't you learn the size of a door from the size of the opening of the Shara Chotzer, the entranceway, the gateway to the Chotzer, which was 5 amas tall and 20 amas wide, like we said earlier. I'll explain in a moment what the question is. I mean, the Sikh will explain in a moment. Und the Gemara answered in Zweiten Teres legirsas atesvis. Now, obviously, as you could tell over here, there's various different ways to understand the Gemara. But if you follow the Girsa of Tesvis, what is the second answer of the Gemara? It says, Kloim tezvav amma. V'chi ksi v'kaima b'reichav heyamois misfas kloim ulamayla. The Tesvis is masbir. Tesvis explains, as the Kushas HaGemara is after Shir Chof Amma from Geva Pesach. The Gemara over there is not asking about the width, it's asking about the height. From Pesach HaChatzer as the Shir from Geva Pesach is not Chamish Amos. The Gemara is telling us that the height of a door is 20 Amos. When we see by the Shara Chatzer that the height of the door was 5 Amos. So which one is it? Is a door 20 Amos tall or 5 Amos tall? Und the Gemara tut uf in dem Enfer. So the Gemara answers that the Kloim were Tezvav Amma, that the Kloim were 15 Amma. And the door, the Masach, the curtain, was 5 Amma above the 15. So it's inside, as Eichner Pesach HaChatzer is given Chav Amis. The Gemara says a Chiddush. Not like the Gemara thought in the question, that the height of the Masach, or the height of the entrance curtain, was 5 Amis. No, the height of the entrance curtain was 20 Amis. Und das was steht für keima bereich of chamish amis, and the fact that the Gemara, the Torah says, the Pasek says that the Masach was 5 amis tall, made misfas kloim olamayla. This means above the rest of the Kalei HaChatzer. 5 amis hecher von die kloim. Was the das Rabbi Yossi and the given 10 amis canal. So now we're merging back to Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said in the Gemara in Zvachim that the height of the kloim was 15 amis. Says the Gemara in Eruvin that the Masach Shara Chatzer was 20 Amis, 5 Amis higher than the 15 Amis of the rest of the Kloim. Now let's take these two Gemaras. In the Gemara in Zvachim, we understand that Rabbi Yossi holds that the Kalei HaChatzer were 15 Amis. In the Gemara in Eruvin, we know that the Masach was 5 Amis higher than that, total of 20 Amis, which is why the Rabbanon could learn that a Pesach, that a doorway is 20 Amis. So now we bring these two Gemaras together. What do we have? As the Das Rabbi Yossi Leighton Pirush HaTesvis is the ties from Leumas Kalei HaChatzer, Hecher from the Kalei HaChatzer. So how would you ties Leumas? Above. That the Kalei HaChatzer were 15, and the 5 Amis of the Masach were Leumas Kalei HaChatzer, higher than the Kalei HaChatzer. So how does this apply to Rashi? We said in the beginning of Sif Gimel, the word Litafridik in Pirush Rashi. So he says like this, Unvibald, as mir zenas frier in the Parshas Truma, bringt Rashi up, beide Deyes von Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Since Rashi in Parshas Truma brings both opinions, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that the Mizbeach was 3 Amis, and the opinion of Rabbi Yossi that the Mizbeach was 10 Amis. So that means that Rabbi Yossi's Pirush has a place in Pshuti Shal Mikra, has a place in Rashi's understanding of the basic understanding of the Pasek. So he could have continued that approach. That just like in Parshas Truma he brought that there's an opinion that says that the Mizbeach was 10 Amis, and according to that opinion, if the Mizbeach is 10 Amis, at this point our understanding is that means that the Kalei HaChatzer are 15 Amis. Then you could say Leumas Kalei HaChatzer means higher than the Kalei HaChatzer, and the Masach Shara Chatzer, the curtain for the opening of the Chatzer, is 20 Amis. And then this would help us. Not only does it fit better in the pasuk, like we said before, that way the words Leumas Kalei HaChatzer would actually be telling us something. Nor Rabbi says Master to das Rabbi Yossi, because Rashi brings it up. Also, now this is consistent with Rabbi Yossi's shita, which is a shita that Rashi obviously accepted in Pshuti Shal Mikra because he mentioned it in Parshas Truma. So, if you follow this reasoning, that Rabbi Yossi holds that the Mizbeach is 10 Amis. If you say the Mizbeach is 10 Amis, that means that the Kalei HaChatzer were 15 Amis. And then you could teach that the Masach Shara Chatzer was 5 Amis above that, a total of 20 Amis. Then you could say Leumas Kalei HaChatzer means Samuch Ulamayla, and it fits in with the Pasek, it fits in with Das Rabbi Yossi, and it's perfect. So this makes our question even stronger. Why did Rashi not do that? Why did Rashi not say Lamayla, and instead he says Kimidas? So those are our You can call them 2 questions, you can call them 3 questions. Question 1 is why does Rashi say the words Kali HaChatzer in the Dibur HaMaschil? Question 2 is why does Rashi not tie Samuch Ulamayla like he did in Parshas Tetzaveh and in Parshas Vayikra? Especially since it fits in better with the Pasek because that there's a Chiddush in the words Leumas Kali HaChatzer. And the third question, which is compounding the second question, is that if we tie to Leumas Mitzamuch Ulamayla, this would fit in with the Shita of Rabbi Yossi, which Rashi already mentioned in Parshas Teruma. So now we're going to go to Sif Daled, and in Sif Daled we're going to refute this last question, which means we're not going to answer the main question. That doesn't happen until Sif A. But in Sif Daled, he is going to refute this last question, this binyan that we made, this building that we just built, that Rabbi Yossi says 10 amis, which means the Klaim were 15 amis, which means that Samach Ulamayla means 20 amis. That we're going to break it. We're going to break down that building with one question. We're going to bring out that while Rashi holds that of the Shita of Rabbi Yossi, that the Mizbeach was 10 amis, Rashi still holds that the Kalei HaChatzer were 5 amis, not 15 amis. And therefore, if he would say Samuch Ulamayla, it wouldn't help anything because it still wouldn't get us to the 20 amis. And by doing that, we're going to refute this last question. And then we'll go to answer the what's bothering Rashi. Sif Dalet. In emes nobody is tuskin kashin. In truth, it's not a question. But the ganze v'shakel atayu hat kinordnet le'dem v'Rashi learned on Mezuzah Mikra. The argument, the discussion, the Shakel of Ataria makes perfect sense in the Gemara. But following the derech of Pshuta Shel Mikra, the argument does not follow. It doesn't compute, it doesn't add up. And we're going to explain as follows. In Pasek V'sav Parshas Truma Eirech HaChatzer V'Gemer V'Kema Chamesh Amis. The Pasek says that the length of the Chatzer was 100 and the height was 5 amis. As Rashi Mefarash Rashi explains, the koima chamesh amis, the height of the Kali HaChatzer was 5 amis. Koivach mechitzas HaChatzer, the height of the partitions, the curtains of the Chatzer, v'ureichav hakloim, which is the width of the kloim. As I mentioned earlier on, if you were to lay it down on the floor, the 5 amis would be the width of the material. Once you lift it up and hang it up, then that 5 amis width becomes the height of 5 amis. But what's Rashi saying? That the width of the kloim, which is the height of the Chatzer, is 5 amis. Das heißt, Agamat beim Shir von Mizbeach bringt Rashi echt die Idee von Rabbi Yossi Gavei Pishnaim Kar. That even though when it comes to the height of the Mizbeach, Rashi does bring the opinion of Rabbi Yossi that the height was double its length, meaning it was 10 amis. But nevertheless, when it comes to the height of the partitions of the Chatzer, the Kalei HaChatzer, Zokter Be'ofen Stami, as is Chamish amis. He says very plain, very simple. It was 5 amis. He doesn't bring 2 opinions. He doesn't say there's another opinion. He just says it was 5 amis. Simple as that. Which means that Rashi is learning that the Mizbeach could have been 10 amis tall, and yet the Kalei HaChatzer were only 5 amis. Muzman Zagin, as Alpiderech Hapshat, is a feel like them Pirush as the Heich from the Mizbeach is Gan Yud amis. Even if you were to hold that the Mizbeach, the height of the Mizbeach was 10 amis, is the Goiva Mechitz Chatzer Gan Chamesh amis. The height of the partitions of the Chatzer is only 5 amis, and their time is Mumum Bepashtus. And we can explain this reason very simply. In other words, we had a question, the person's going to see. The person outside the Chatzer is going to see the Kohen doing the Avodah on the Mizbeach, which is why Rabbi Yossi concluded that the Kali HaChatzer were 15 amis. But if we're coming from the direction of Pshuta Shel Mikra, says Nitok kein Hecherech and Derech Hapshat, al Mezol Nit Toren Zen Vider Kohen Tut Yavenev Mizbeach. There is no compelling proof in the world of Pshat that tells us that no one could see the Kohen doing the Avodah. Which is, even if there might be a limud for this in Derech HaHalacha or in Derech HaGemara, in Derech HaPshat, there's nothing in the Pshat that compels us to say that no one could see the Kohen doing the Avodah. Underiber, Taitzman v'Koyim Chamesh Amis Kipshute, and therefore we could translate that the height of the Kalei HaChatzer was 5 amis. We could translate it literally. Nitvi al piderech limud haGemara das Rabbi Yossi as a smeit misvasas Vayakhel l'mayla. Not the way the Gemara learns according to Rabbi Yossi, that the 5 amis were above the 10 amis of the Mizbeach. That's derech haGemara. But al derech hapshat, there's nothing wrong with seeing the Kohen doing the Avodah, and therefore there's no reason to change and say that the Kalei HaChatzer were any higher than 5 amis. B'meila is moving. As eich v'negia der heich von shar HaChatzer, we can apply the same thing, so it's understood that the same thing can be applied to the height of the entrance curtain. and the entrance of the chutzner. As al pi pshat is as l'chol hapirushim gven nor chamish ames. Afilu leitem pirush as it came as mizbeach is yudamis. That everyone could agree al pi pshat. Even the opinion that holds that the mizbeach was 10 ames, there's no reason to say that the shara chutzner, that the gateway, the entranceway into the chutzner was any more than 5 ames. So therefore, with this, we refuted our previous question. Our whole question was built on the fact that if you say that the Mizbeach was 10 ames, then the Kalei HaChotzir have to be 15 ames in order to block the Kohen doing the Aveda. And if the Kalei HaChotzir are 15 ames, then you could say Le'umas Kalei HaChotzir means another 5 ames to make the Shara Chotzir 20 ames. But if you pull out that one connector and you say that it's possible, al pi pshat, that the Mizbeach was 10 ames and the Kalei HaChotzir were 5 ames, then the Umas doesn't do anything for me. To say that the Umas means Lamaila. And therefore, the stronger question that we introduced is now refuted. However, as we didn't answer the first question. Hey, nemes as mitzatech in is other chapshat netoken to sagen das the base is the giver von Shara Chotzir. You may be chamish ames. It's true that by following the meaning of the parsha, there's no reason to say that according to Rabbi Yesi, the height of the chutzner was any higher than 5 ames. Ober mitzad loshna kosuv leumas kalei chutzner. Hot men gedarf teichen as the Shara Chotzir is ben chamish ames hecher from the kalei chutzner kiniskil lehil. But if we go back to our question in Seif Beis, which we said very simple, we said that if you say that leumas means kimidas, then the pasuk isn't telling us anything. But if you were to say that leumas means to add 5 ames above the 5 ames of the Kalei HaChotzir, then it's adding something. It's telling us something that we didn't know till now. So even if mitzad Rabbi Yosi, we have no reason to say that it means samuch ulamayla, because the fact that you can't see into the chutzner is not a hechrich, is not a definite, according to Pshutei Shel Mikra. But it doesn't answer our original question that leumas kalei chutzner could have fit in much better in the pasuk if you taich samuch ulamayla. In other words, why does Rashi taich kemidas and not samuch ulamayla? And now in Sifei we're going to go into the explanation, and he's going to say we have to go back and figure out what is bothering Rashi. Once we understand what is bothering Rashi, we'll understand why Rashi uses just the word le'uma, why Rashi does not use just the word le'umas in the Dibur HaMaschil. We'll understand why Rashi does not use the taich samuch ulamayla and instead says kemidas, and we'll understand what Rashi means by saying kemidas. Let's go. Sifei. Der Bier in dem. Rashi stellt sich auf die Werte leumas kalei chutzner, weil die 3 Werte seien lechere übrig. What's bothering Rashi, and the reason why Rashi quotes all 3 words in his Dibur HaMaschil, is because Rashi is bothered, these 3 words are superfluous. In other words, the question that we asked on Rashi is actually the question that Rashi is bothering Rashi himself. Why does the pasuk say the words leumas kalei chutzner? But he's going to take it here in the Sikha even a step further. Afilu wenn mir soll einteichen kanal, as das meint chamish amis hecher von die kloim. Even if you were going to say samuch ulamayla, that this mosach, that the curtain of the Shara Chotzir was 5 ames higher than the rest of the kloim, is the chalaf that move on. Still doesn't answer this question of the fact that these words are extra. Why does the Torah have to let us know the size of the Shara Chotzir in a roundabout way? Instead of saying Chamish Ames, Leumas Kalei HaChotzir, he could have said Eser Ames. So Rashi is wondering, why does the pasuk say the words Leumas Kalei HaChotzir? Even if you were to say Samuch Ulamayla, Taich that Leumas be Samuch Ulamayla, still doesn't answer the question. If you want to tell me the Kalei HaChotzir, the Masach was 10 Ames, tell me Eser Ames. Why Chamish Ames Leumas? So we already have an answer to one question. Why Rashi in the Dibur HaMaschil says Leumas Kalei HaChotzir? Because what Rashi is telling us what's bothering him. Why does the pasuk say Leumas Kalei HaChotzir? What's it telling us? The Rebbe sagt Rashi. Therefore comes Rashi and tells us, as the pasuk kommt zu sagen, Atam, verwas die Heich vom Masach Shara Chotzir gedarf and Chamish Ames. Rashi is coming to tell us, not what the size of the Masach was, but why was it this size? Why was the Masach Shara Chatzar, the curtain of the entrance of the Chatzar, 5 amis, unit hecher with the Masach Pesach Oil, and not higher? For example, the Masach Pesach Oil was 10 amis. Why is it only 5 amis tall? So Rashi says, Rashi is telling us that the reason why the Torah says the words Lumas Kali Achatzer is not to tell us the size. Because if it was coming to tell us the size, it would have told us the size, Chamish Amis, or Esed Amis for that matter. It's coming to tell us the reason for the size. Why is the Masach 5 Amis? And the answer is, Val der Masach hat gemust sein Kemidas Kali Achatzer. Because the Masach had to be the same measurement as the Kali Achatzer. Therefore it was 5 Amis like the Kali Achatzer. The Pasek is madgish, and he explains, the Pasek is emphasizing, as der Masach is in sein Teuchen, sein Zweck, the purpose of the Masach, dasselbe, unatel von the Kloim. The Masach has the same purpose, the same reason for being as the rest of the Kloim, und der Riber darf sein Heich, sein Punkt für Zerich, and therefore its height has to be the same as the height of the rest of the Kloim. What Rashi is telling us over here is Kemidas Kali Achatzer, telling us that the reason why the Masach is 5 amis is because the Masach is part of the Kloim. And just like the Kloim are 5 amis, also the Masach is 5 amis. And that's why, that answers the second question, why Rashi doesn't say Samach Olamayla, because Samach Olamayla wouldn't have answered the question. Samach Olamayla would still leave a question, why does the Torah say Lumas Kali Achatzer, not Eser Amis? So therefore Rashi comes with a Chiddush and says Lumas Kali Achatzer is coming to teach me that the Masach was Kemidas Shari Achatzer, not just the same measurements as the Kali Achatzer. It was the same purpose. It was part of what the Kali Achatzer were trying to accomplish. And therefore, it had to be their same size. And that's why it's Chamish Amis. And that's the Pasek says, L'umas. Now that we've answered the question on Rashi, we understand why Rashi quotes the words L'umas Kali Achatzer. We understand why Rashi does not take the pshat of Samach Ulamayla, and why Rashi teaches Kemidas Kali Achatzer. This will help us understand, and will be understood a little bit better by introducing 2 more things. One on the topic of the Masach Shara Chatzar, which is the second half of Sif Hey, and one in Sif Vav, a machlekes with regards to Mezuzah. Der Mitzvah wird bederech aga verämpft the kasha al derech halacha was wird gebracht in Rabbi Sinne Bali Atesves. Now that we understand what Rashi is trying to accomplish here, what Rashi is telling us with the words L'umas Kali Achatzer, that it was to tell us that the Masach Shara Chatzar is doing the same function as the Kali Achatzer. This will also answer a question that is brought in Bali Atesves. The Pshat Das Kenim Bali Atesves. These are pirushim by the Bali Atesves on Chumash, and they ask a question: Im lo yayu gvayim al Chumash amos. If the Kali Achatzer were only 5 amas tall, and the Masach was therefore also only 5 amas tall, then that would mean that the entranceway into the Chatzar is not as tall as the entranceway into the Heichal of the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, and that's a problem. Und der Riber, seinen sie dort mefarish, and therefore they explain, the Bali Atesves explain, as the Kloim von Saddam Mizrach, ubemela Echter Pesach HaChatzir, haben gehati hoich von Chaf Amma. Therefore, according to the Bali Atesves, the eastern side of the Chatzir, which basically means the two sides of 15 amas, and the actual Masach of 20 amas wide, were all 20 amas tall as well. The Bali Atesves hold that while they actually hold that the other 3 walls were 15 amas, but that's not addressed here in the Sikha. Whatever height the other 3 walls were, the eastern wall was 20 amas tall, and that means that the Masach Pesach Shara Chatzir, the curtain in the entranceway of the Chatzir, was 20 amas tall, and that's how they make it consistent with the entranceway of the Chatz of the Heichal in the Beis Hamikdash. But their question was, l'chayda, it's not matching up the Mishkan and the Beis Hamikdash. However, Virasha led it al Pimshudish al Mikra. He doesn't make a kash on it. Third question is coming from the perspective of halacha. Rashi is coming from the perspective of pshat, and according to pshat, it's not a question to begin with. The pasuk itself addresses this issue by saying the words leumas kali achatzer. Der Masach shara achatzer is gven atel from the kali achatzer. Nit on weisen dik von welcher Seite. The curtain of the that going into the chatzer was actually not seen as a door. It wasn't seen as an entranceway. Even though it was used as an entranceway, but it wasn't seen as an entranceway. It was seen as part of the climb, of all the other sides of the climb. The says in ganzen Chatzers and given dieselbe Hech von the climb. Which means to say that in the entire Chatzer, all of the climb on all four sides were all the same height. So therefore, and therefore, according to the Pshat, according to Rashi, the opening of the Chatzer did not have the geder, the definition of a doorway, like it was in Pesach HaHeichel. Therefore, it didn't matter. Therefore, the sizes didn't have to match. So, according to Rashi, the Shar HaChatzer is not seen as a Shar. According to Rashi, according to Pshat Mikra, the Shar HaChatzer is part of the rest of the walls, and therefore it doesn't have to match up with the Pesach of the Heichel and Beis Elamim, and the whole question doesn't begin at all. So by teaching leumas kalei achatzer that the Masach is part of the kloim, which is how Rashi teaches according to the way the Rebbe explained, this also answers the question of the Balei HaTesvos. Now we go to Seivav, which is going to take us a little detour into Hilchas Mezuzah, and we're going to see how Rashi's pshat in leumas kalei achatzer actually has ramifications in Hilchas Mezuzah, and that even Rashi al Shas is going to be consistent with Rashi b'Pirushay al Teira with regards to Hilchas Mezuzah that are contingent on or hinge upon, no pun intended, Hilchas Mezuzah. The Chiddush binyan anal Sivav, the Chiddush binyan anal, as the Masach Shara Chatzer is betechnei atel from the kloim. This Chiddush, that the entrance curtain was, by definition, a part of the kloim, that noch klarer therein will become even clearer later Hezber in Machlekes Rishonim Mezuzah, based on explaining a Machlekes Rishonim with regards to Mezuzah. And the reason why he says that noch klarer therein is because when you say is the kloim, the Masach is the kloim, not the kloim, the reality was that it was the Shara Chatzer. That's how people went in and out of the Chatzer. So it was being used as a door. So what does it mean? It is a door. It's not a door. It's kloim. It's not kloim. Like how does it become relevant? How do you practical to describe the Masach as kloim or as a door? But according to what we're going to learn now about Mezuzah, we're going to see how it actually makes a difference. Is this considered a door? An opening, or is this considered a kalei achatzer, just another curtain, another partition? And that'll become clearer once we understand this machlekes with regards to mezuzah. One of the requirements that obligate a house to have a mezuzah or a room, the Rambam lists in the beginning of Perek Vav of Hilchas Mezuzah, the Rambam lists 10 requirements for a room or a house to be chayiv in mezuzah. One of them is v'yiyu leidlosais. According to the Rambam, it has to have a door. It's not enough that it has an entranceway, a gateway, a way to go in and out. It has to have a door, something that actually opens and closes. The Ravid and other Rishonim hold as a Pesach on Adelas is mechuyev b'mezuzah, that even if it's an opening, an entranceway, without a door, just an open entranceway, it's also mechuyev b'mezuzah. So there's a very simple machlekes. You go around your house, you'll see that a lot of the doorways have doors. Some of the doorways don't have doors. So according to the Rambam, those doorways that don't have doors are not mechuyev b'mezuzah. According to the Ravid and other Rishonim, even those doorways that don't have doors are mechuyev b'mezuzah. So let's try to explain what is the background of their machlekes. Ados is totally in the biur ageder von delas. That it depends on how you define a door. Aleph, One way of looking at it, you don't ever thought that we were going to discuss what's a door. Everyone thinks a door, it opens and closes it. What's a door? No. Al pi halacha, we have to now define what is the definition of a door. What is the purpose of a door? One way of looking at it, deles is a tail from the mashar. The door is a part of the doorway, of the entranceway. Vasinyanne is psicha, and the purpose of the door, and because the purpose of the doorway is to be open, knisa v'yitzia, to go in and to go out. That's one way of looking at it. The purpose of a door is to open it up and make it possible for people to go in and out. Beis, another way of looking at it is that deles is even from the atzmei. Deles, the door, is a separate entity. Sgira, it's about closing, about sealing off the space. Without a door, there would have been a constantly open entranceway. And the purpose of the door is to seal the opening. What would be the halachic relevance between these two definitions? With regards to the obligation of Mezuzah, if you take the approach that the door is part of the doorway, part of the gateway, and the purpose of the door is to create an opening, to let people in and people out, is mistaber. Then it would follow, as der chiyuv from Mezuzah, was is verbunden mit mokema knisse vayitzia from Bais, then that the obligations from Mezuzah, which is connected with the entrance, entering and exiting the house. In order 28, he brings in the Gemara in Yuma that it says Beisecha. So the Gemara says Derech bi osecha. Beisecha means the way you come in to the house. And Mezuzah is Beisecha. Derech bi osecha, the place where you come into the house. 129, he brings from the Gemara from the Zoyar that it says that there's a mitzvah on a person to put a mezuzah on his doorway, so that a person should be protected by the Eibishter when they go in and when they go out. As the Pasek says, Hashem Yishmer Tzeischo Vayakhel Meyata V'Adelam, so that we see both from the Gemara and the Zayar that the purpose of the mezuzah is connected with going in and out of the house. So if the door is part of the doorway, part of the ability to enter and exit the house, then is Faran. So then the chiyuv would only become Norvan der Pasek is beifane haragil v'ashalim. It's only if the door is complete and regular, full. Then arata delas when it has a door. If the doorway because having a door makes it possible to get into the house. So if you say that the purpose of the door is to create an opening into and out of the house, then the doorway is incomplete without the door. And therefore, if you have a mitzvah like mezuzah that's connected with entering and exiting the house, then it has to happen. Then the mitzvah is only there when you have a full possibility to enter and exit, namely a door. But if you're going to say that the idea of a door is to seal off the opening of the entranceway, then it doesn't make sense to say that the obligation of the mezuzah, which is supposed to be at the opening of the gate, the place where a person goes in and out of the house, should be dependent on a door whose purpose is to seal off the opening. Which his purpose is to not allow entering and exiting. So if the door is part of the doorway, then in order to be chayav mezuzah, you have to have a door and a doorway. If the door is fighting the doorway, is the opposite of the doorway is to enter and exit, and the door is to seal off that opening, then there's no reason to say that the mezuzah would be dependent on a door. And therefore, so we will say like this, according to the Rambam says that it has to have doors because the Rambam holds that the purpose of the door is to open things. It's to open things up, and therefore the door is part of the doorway. And therefore, in order to be mechuyev in a mezuzah, you need to have a door and a doorway, which is the whole package. According to the Ravid and the other Rishonim, the purpose of a door is to close off the space. And therefore, it's not really what a doorway is meant to be. And therefore, the mezuzah is mechuyev even if there's no door. Obviously, even if there is a door, it's still being used to go in and out. and therefore it's still going to need a mezuzah. But the chiddush is that according to the Ravid and other Rishonim, it does not need a door to be mechuyev mezuzah. Once there's an opening that people go in and go out, it's mechuyev in a mezuzah. So that's the machlekes Rishonim about the chiyuv of a mezuzah. Do you need a door or not? And the background, so to speak, of what is the machlekes based upon. Now let's bring it back to our Rashi. Now we can apply this to Rashi's shita in this matter. Rashi lernt as der Masach Shara Chatzer hat gemuz sein kemidas kalei Chatzer. What did we learn? Ukena. What did we learn? That Rashi says that the masach, the curtain at the entrance of the Chatzer, was the same size as the kalei Chatzer. Ukenal. Val bimehusei is an atil from the kloim, because by its definition it's a part of the other curtains. Just like the rest of the curtains were with the purpose of concealment, to block out, to conceal what was going on inside the Chatzer. So too the curtain at the entrance of the Chatzer, in Yonei, since we said that it's the same thing as the kloim, nitatil from the Pesach Shara Chatzer. The masach is not part of the opening and entranceway into the Chatzer, nor stima. It's part of the concealment of the rest of the kloim. Ukishmai masach versus lashon megan. And like the word masach, which masach means like megan, to protect. It's protecting the Chatzer from the outsiders. Der Funes move on. Ich move on and get together from Dallas. So if Rashi says that the masach is like the kloim, which is stima, which is to close the space off, and not like a pesach, which is opening pesach miloshen psicha. So now we can apply the same thing to the gather of Delas. Now we're going to go back to Mezuzah. But the Mosach Shadowhunter has been came out Delas came forward in Chuvas Rabbi Avram and Rambam. Like Avram and Rambam says clearly that the Mosach Shadowhunter was in place of a door. So if we're going to say that the Mosach Shadowhunter is in Yonra, is stima, is to close off the space like the Kalei Chatzer, then that would mean, as if you can apply that back to the door, as leit shitas Rasha is Delas and Yonra is Gine unit psicha. Then what's the definition of a door? Like the Mosach, which was like the Kloim, to close off the space. So before we get to that, I'm sorry. So according to Pshita of Rashi ala Torah, the Rashi would hold that like the Ravid and like the other Rishonim, that a mezuzah, that a door, even without a doorway, even without a door, is mechoyev in a mezuzah, because a door is in Yonei Sigira, closing it off, just like the Mosach, which was like the kloim, which was the purpose, was stima, was closing things off. Now, not only would this work this way in Rashi's Pirush ala Torah, but does his masim eichem mishitas Rashi v'rush el hashas. Vor halt as eicha Pesach b'lidelas is mechuyev mezuzah, und wie eben geretten as baras hashita ala delas is nit kintel from the Pesach. Rashi in the Gemara, in a different Gemara in Menachos, Rashi implies in his Pirush that a door, even a doorway, even without a door, is mechuyev in a mezuzah. So therefore, which is consistent with what we said before about Rashi and Pirush ala Torah, which is consistent with the other Rishonim, which makes sense according to the fact that Rashi holds that the Masach Shara Chatzer, which was like a Delas, was similar to the Kalei Chatzer, which their idea was stima, and we explained that if the purpose of the door is stima, then it's not part of the doorway, and it is not a necessary requirement for a chiyuv of mezuzah. Huh. Pasek Gewaldig. So we started out with a simple question on the word leumas, which leumas means kemidas. We were machades that Rashi is explaining why is the masach only 5 amas tall, and we said because Rashi holds that the masach is kemidas kalei chatzer, that the purpose of the masach is the same thing as the kloim, and therefore it has to be the same size as the kloim. What does this really truly mean, that it's the same as the kloim? It means that just like the kloim, the purpose of the kloim was to close off the chatzer, so to the masach, the purpose of the masach was to close off the chatzer. This actually has a relevance that if the idea of a masach is to close off, then the idea of a delas is also to close off, because the masach and the delas go hand in hand. And if the idea of a delas is to close off, then that would make that the delas is not part of the Pesach. It's not part of the entranceway of the doorway, and that would mean that al pi halacha, the entranceway does not need a door in order to be mechuyev mezuzah, because the door is a separate entity from the doorway. That was your 60-second recap. Sif Ches, we're going to go, because as many layers as we've done, we haven't gotten to Soich B'Torah yet. We haven't gotten to Chassidus. Now we're going to learn what's a door al pi Chassidus. How does it work? This discussion with regards to the idea, the definition of a door in the halacha of Torah is eich faran benagia zum inyan von delas wie mevur in chelek hasoich b'Torah, is also relevant with regards to the idea of a door and what it is in the chelek of soich b'Torah, the esoteric part of Torah, the chassidus part. Delas b'pnimi yadam esfiras malchus. Delas, on the deeper level, on the deeper dimension, the delas, the door, is malchus. Weil Sfiras HaMalchus is the memutza zwischen Elam HaAtzilis and the Elam HaShalom HaAtzilis. Sfiras HaMalchus is the conduit between the world of Sfiras HaMalchus is the conduit between the world of Atzilis and the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya below it. Ubichlal zwischen ein Elam und Elam Shalom Ubichlal zwischen ein Elam und Elam Shalom Memenu. And truthfully, between every Elam, from Atzilis to Bria, from Bria to Yitzira, from Yitzira to Asiya, there is the Sfiras HaMalchus that becomes the gateway, the conduit from one world to the next world. It says in Chassidus that the Malchus of Atzilis becomes Keser to Biyah. In other words, the lowest level of this world becomes the highest level of the next world, because what it does is, like in the case of a nekeva, it takes the energy from the Zachar and it gives birth to a new child. Similarly, Malchus takes the energy from the world above it and gives birth to a new world. So, in Sfiras HaMalchus, and that's we know that Malchus has two different elements, seemingly dichotomous, but as we'll soon see, actually working together. Aleph Malchus is Mailim of the Sfiras V'Chazayin and Hechafoner. On the one hand, Malchus conceals the Sfiras above it, but mitzadem helim from Malchus v'etz younger from Yam, and because of this concealment of Malchus, Malchus is called Yam, ocean, which the ocean, the water covers over, the sea covers over everything, all of the creations that exist within it. Und durch dem Helim, but because of this Helim is Beis, this brings to the second element of Malchus. Malchus trakt arop und is megala dem von Atzilus, so the nidrike elemis. Malchus draws down and reveals the light of the world of Atzilus to the lower worlds. Umitzad dem v'etz younger than Eretz, and because of that, Malchus is called Eretz. Eretz is Alma di Iskalia, the revealed world, where on earth almost everything is above the ground and therefore visible. So on the one hand, Malchus conceals, on the other hand, Malchus reveals. So this would pose the question: was is the Ikir for Sfiras Malchus? What's the primary function of Malchus? The Inyan HaHelim or the Inyan HaGilui? Was is in und durch hier? Is it the fact that Malchus conceals, or the revelation that it has and that the relation that it brings about? Which would you say is Malchus's primary function? You know, he does both. On the journey from Atzilus to Biyah, or between worlds, it's being Mailim on the Eira Atzilus, on the Eir which is coming from Atzilus, and it's being Megala Eira Leki into Biyah. Which one of these two is its primary function? The Emperor Leit Pirush Rashi. So he's going to say something very interesting. The answer is both. It's the very classic Yiddish expression, "Sevenzich v'umeret." It depends on which level. From one angle, from one perspective, Malchus is primarily Helim. On another perspective, Malchus is primarily Gilui. And he explains like this. The Emperor Leit Pirush Rashi. L'umas kalei achatzer, kemidas kalei achatzer. Rashi says that l'umas means kemidas, that the mosach, the deles, does what like the kloim does, with the kloim do, which is helim, concealment. Mitzad dem limud von elam apshat elam asiya is der mosach the deles von sfiras hamalchus. Not even the kloim helim mustima. I'm just going to stop a second and say it out, and then we'll continue inside. If you look at the four elamis as the four levels of Torah, pshat and is drush sod. So Atzilus is sod, and Bria is drush, and Yitzira is remez, and Asiya is pshat. Now, Elam Atzilus is leigur chara. There's no ra in Atzilus. And Elam Abria, so Rubek Akula a toiv, Merak Ma'adra Muru B'toicha. It has mostly good with a little bit of bad. Elam Yitzira is half and half. It's half good, half bad. Elam Asiya, our world, our wonderful, beautiful world, is the lashon is rubek kule ra rak ma'atayv mur b'toiche. It's mostly bad with a little bit of good blended in. So now, if you're looking from at Elam Asiya, Malchus is primarily Helam. There's only a little bit of good that's revealed into this world, which means that primarily Malchus is Helam. It's concealing most of the light and just letting a small light out. But if you look at Yetzirah, which has half, 50% good, and for sure if you look at Asiya, at Bria, which is mostly good, over there's a lot of Gilui. And which is why you could have a lot of good or even halfway, 50% good, because the Gilui is strong. Over there you could say that the primary function of Malchus is Gilui, because it's doing more Gilui than Helam. So therefore, if you look at it now, in the world of Pshat is Elam Asiyah. So Rashi says that the Delis is in Yonei, which is Malchus, is in Yonei Helam, because looking at Elam Asiyah, you see more Helam than you see Gilui. But if you look at it from the other levels, of Bria and Yetzirah, then although the function of Malchus there has to be a Helam, but nevertheless, it's the primary function is Gilui. In the Elmes Bria Yetzirah, Hagam Zeichen ze peil dem Helam von Tfiras Malchus, was der Iber ist in ze nicht mehr der Elikia ze begili wie Natzilis, Elam Achdus, in the world of Bria and Yetzirah, even though they are also affected by the concealment, which is why the the light of Hashem, does not shine as strongly. Nevertheless, there is a revelation that's being drawn down into them. When the fire is Bria and Elam is Rubei Tov, and therefore Bria is mostly good. When Yetzirah is Akalpane Mechza Yetzirah is half and half. Oh, but in Elam Asiya is Helam Lagamri. Elam Asiya is a total Helam. It says Elam HaKlippus is it's the world of Klippus, of negative forces, evil forces. Given by the deeds of this world are difficult and bad, and the Rishoim, the wicked, overpower in this world. And therefore, what do you realize? What do you see more than anything else in this world? The concealment of Malchus, more than you see anything else. And therefore, when Rashi talks, Rashi is coming from the world of Pshat, which is the world of Asiya. Rashi sees the Masach, which is the Delis, which is Malchus, as Helam more than he sees it as a Gilui. The last question that we're going to address is, why does the Pasek say the word Le'umas and not Kemidas? If, according to Rashi, the purpose of this Pasek is to teach me that the Masach Sharach Chotzer was the same function, had the same function as the Kalei Chotzer, and therefore they have to be the same size, why does Rashi have to say Le'umas? The Pasek say Le'umas and Rashi has to attach Kemidas. Let the Pasek just say Kemidas and that's it. But here he's going to say something incredible. That at the end of the day, the Helam is temporary and it's not real. And therefore you can't say Kemidas. You can't say that the Masach and the Kloim are exactly the same, because even the Masach, which according to Rashi, in Yonah is Helam, it's only temporary Helam. Ultimately, the Masach is going to become Gilui, which is when Mashiach comes. The test, the Tachas HaKavanah. The whole purpose of life is to break the concealment, to destroy the concealment, to create a Gilia revelation of Malchus. The Rebbe steht nicht in Teire befehrish Kemidas Kalei Achatzer, nor Leumas Kalei Achatzer. Therefore, it doesn't say the word Kemidas, but it says Leumas. But Leumas meint nicht a vergleich was it is selber mamish. Leumas means a comparison, but one that is not identical. Nor blaze am ein und dugma. Leumas means it's the same, it's similar. Which it doesn't mean that they're exactly the same. It means they have comparisons. It means they're parallel to each other. But it doesn't mean they're exactly the same. So therefore, Torah uses the word leumas to tell us that they're not exactly the same. To say their Masach Sharach is nicht dasselbe mamish wie die Kloim. The Masach Sharach is not exactly the same as the Kloim. Welche seien a ständiger, vollständiger Hefsek Ve'elam, which are a constant and complete concealment. Nor Torah geht keach zu ihr machen the Masach. As a veteran aninya from Psicha V'Gila, Torah gives us the power to transform the Masach, that instead of it being a Helam, it should become a Gilui. Therefore, the Torah doesn't say the word Kemidas. Kemidas would mean exactly the same. They're not exactly the same. Even the Masach, which is doing a Helam, is only temporary. And Torah gives us the keach to make it into a Gilui. Bis es wird die Psicha with the Pischei Shalulam, so much so we can open it up like the doors, like the opening of the Beis Hamikdash. But Lehoyu Beit Lasses, which did not have doors, Shetamid Pasuach was always open. As a very Gili ständig betachlis on Keina Alamis, it becomes a constant and a consistent revelation, which is going to happen when Mashiach comes, when the covet of the Eibishter will be revealed, and every being of flesh will see the Eibishter speaking. In Sif Yud, really the Sikha is finished. In other words, the inyanim that are being discussed we completed. In Sif Yud is a phenomenal seif that really belongs in almost every single Rashi Sikha. But I'm it's a tough Sikha still. The Rebbe was still teaching us, or the Chassidim that were there at the time, the geschmack of a Rashi Sikha, and not just the geschmack, but the depth of the Rashi Sikha. So in this Rashi Sikha, where you have 3-word Rashi, that gave us a window into Pshat of Torah, into Halacha of Torah, into Seid of Torah, into Mezuzah, into so many different areas within one little tiny Rashi. So the conclusion must be not just to enjoy the Rashi, but to realize the brilliance and the depth of our Rashi. This shows us the amazing, the wonderment, the incredible Rashi. As von a kurzen Pirush von Rashi, from a tiny little Rashi. That at first glance seems like a very ordinary translation. Not only how we see so clearly that Rashi stays consistent with Pshutei Shel Mikra, and Rashi stays L'umas Kemidas, because that's how it will fit with Pshutei Shel Mikra. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense why these words are even there. But together with the Pshutei Shel Mikra, we see this Rashi shows us how Rashi contains incredible ideas, amazing, wonderful, wonder-filled ideas. Even connected to halacha, is how we see the fact that this Rashi on Chumash is consistent with Rashi in the Gemara, where he says that a delas, that a Pesach is chayiv in a Mezuzah even without a delas. And how things that are in Pshat and Halacha are consistent with Kabbalah and Chassidus. It all comes together so beautifully. Every piece of the puzzle fits in so perfectly that it should teach us not just to understand this Rashi, but to appreciate the every Rashi, what it has to teach us. And obviously, it doesn't have to be said, but it's the Rebbe's sichos that allow us to understand the Rashi. Without the sichos, we would look at the Rashi and we would move on to the next Rashi. The Rebbe taught us and trained us and teaches us and trains us how to look at a Rashi, how to realize that when you see 3 words in the Rashi, the depth and the beauty that this Rashi contains is infinite. All you have to do is look into it and delve deeper and deeper and deeper. The Rebbe says a helfen that we should be able to never stop.